Hello and welcome to the Daily Neloo. Today I'm in Maddox Studios with award-winning author of The Alphabet of Manliness, I'm Better Than Your Kids, and Fuck Whales. Maddox, I usually do the introduction, but you wrote your own?
No, I didn't. I found this online. I found this bio, and it looked pretty accurate, so I'm gonna just read it. This is, I don't know who wrote this.
Okay.
But it sounds pretty accurate. It says here, and I'll correct it if there's any mistakes in here. It says, Maddox is the greatest philanthropist in history. That's, so far, so good. That's accurate. He invented a time machine to go back in time and give Gandhi the opportunity to apologize to him for not being better. That's also true. To say that Maddox is a billionaire would be an overstatement, as he is merely a millionaire. The greatest gift he has ever given mankind is his wisdom, followed by his love-making ability, which has satisfied tens of women. If there was one word to describe Maddox, it would be inadequate, because one word is inadequate to describe a man of his stature. This is all true. I don't know who wrote this. It's very accurate. Maddox once spared the life of a burglar who broke into his house, showing him kindness so that he would change his ways and become a better man. Then once he was reformed, Maddox executed him because he has no mercy for criminals, no matter what. Maddox is a gift to the world, and we should all celebrate him as hard as we can. This is a very good bio. Whoever wrote that, thank you. That's very good.
They must know you very well.
Yeah, very deep insight into the man.
All right, guys, so that was Maddox, and the genius behind Maddox is George. So, George, how did you come up with this character?
So, this was my writer's voice for a long time on my website. I didn't even have a name when I first started writing. It was just my login name for my internet service provider, and when people would go to my website, they would see Maddox in the URL, so that's what people started calling me. So whatever this voice was that I had, my writer's voice, became Maddox, and that's how kind of like the persona developed, and then
a little
people
bit
started...
of Frankenstein.
What do you mean?
Like you gave life to a monster.
I don't think so.
You've built an entire career around this character. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I never intended for this to ever be anything other than just an outlet for my writing. It was cathartic for me to write. And that's the question I get asked a lot, is like, how do you become a writer? I'm like, I don't know, I just kept writing. And then eventually someone came by and offered me a book deal, and then another, and then it just continued from there. Writing, for me, spawned from the love of the craft. And I wrote no matter what. When I first started my website and I started writing, I had fewer than 5 readers per month. And that to me was incredible. I was so gracious and humbled that 5 people in the world gave a shit about what I had to say. And that continued, that was the motivation to continue writing from that point, and then it became millions, and it's like nothing has changed. I'm so overwhelmed and grateful that anyone cares about what I have to say.
Like I mentioned, you've written some pretty amazing books. Let's talk about this one a little bit.
Sure.
So this is I'm Better Than Your Kids, where you actually grade children's art.
Right.
So what was the inspiration? What was Maddox's inspiration behind this?
So I was standing around in a coworker's cubicle a long time ago at my old job, and waiting for her to get me some reports or something. And while I'm standing there, I'm like looking around her cubicle, and I see a bunch of crappy children's artwork, and I'm like, wow, that sucks. And she goes, my nephew drew that. And I'm like, well, your nephew sucks. And she's like, he's 4 years old. I'm like, that changes nothing. Like, this is really terrible artwork. So that inspired me to write an article, and it went viral, and then I wrote a whole book.
And the highest grade child's art can get is an F+, by the way.
That's right, yeah. It goes from, so the range is F- to F+. So yeah, I'm very fair, very judicious. There are some A+ in that book, though.
And who did that art?
I did. So, you know what, though? I feel like I was kind of, when I was drawing some of the artwork in this book, people were like, oh, let's see how good you can draw. And then I did sit down and draw this.
That is pretty, actually, amazing.
That's the first thing I've ever drawn in... I think that was the first thing I'd ever drawn in, like, I don't know, 10 years. So just sat down with a pen one day. That's done in pen, too, so...
And you're putting that in contrast with Stuart's tank, is that right?
Yeah, there's some real crap in there. Anyway, that was the idea for that book.
He was your writer's voice, but now you've built a podcast with him and some other content. Like, how is that growing?
So, I just ended my main podcast, the debate podcast that I did. It's been an interesting run because I'm trying all the different mediums. When I first started Maddox, it was just a writer. I didn't have a face. I didn't have, no one knew what I sounded like. No one knew what I looked like. Then I eventually transitioned into YouTube because I thought, well, this is a new medium and I want to see how I can translate Maddox's content into a new format. And the audio video analog to grading children's artwork on YouTube was to grade children singing. Hey, good job, hero. My only note, and this is nitpicky, is that next time you need to make it a little less shitty. Wrong! So that's also taken off, and then I experimented with podcasting and video games and all sorts of different styles of writing, Twitch streaming, that sort of thing. So it's been kind of an evolution and seeing what works and what doesn't.
Where are you going next with Maddox?
Or
are you gonna let Maddox kind of rest a little bit?
No. I think
God forbid.
I think because I can't stop writing. It's what I do. Like, I write so much, and very little of my writing, especially in the last few years, has been public. I've written hundreds and hundreds of pages, and much of it hasn't been published. And it's something that I have in me that I have to keep doing. So I think I'm going to go back to my roots and just keep writing, because that's where people originally discovered me.
So your next bestseller is on its way?
Possibly. I mean, may have already been written. Who knows?
How would Maddox answer that question?
How would Maddox write? Yeah, the next bestseller has already been written. There's fucking 5 bestsellers in those. You could just take every chapter from this book. It's a bestseller. Every sentence is a bestseller. Every word, a bestseller.
All right. Thank you, George, for having us, and please thank Maddox for his time.
I'll let him know.
All right. I'll see you guys tomorrow.